Hey, I am Beth, and we have a live for you today that you're not going to want to miss. The live that we have for you today is for any woman that is feeling jealous within their marriage. So we are going to jump right in and we are going to talk about how to overcome jealousy within your marriage. So I'm going to invite my friend Shannan in any second. You may recognize Shannan. We've done this before. And here we go. I'm just letting. And what we're going to do is we are going to give you a bunch of strategies and tips for those that feel like they have those obsessive thoughts about what their partner's doing. Maybe you're feeling like you're jealous when your partner's texting with someone and you're wondering what they're really up to. So here we are. This is Shannan. Shannan is an incredible friend of mine. She is from 24/7 Marriage. Her and her husband have been married 25 years. They have this incredible 29. Oh, 29. Sorry, 29 years. Where did 25 come from? But regardless, that's incredible. And they have this amazing marriage lab on wheels. So check out her Instagram if you want to see this like incredible vehicle where they travel around and they help women, help couples, thousands of couples heal their marriages. Shannan, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you again. And Happy New Year, even though it's February 2nd. Still early enough to say Happy New Year.
I agree. So Shannan, let's just hop right in. I was thinking,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about how to overcome jealousy within a marriage. So one thing I wanted to dispel right away is we have feelings of jealousy and we have feelings of envy. So there's a slight difference here. When we talk about jealousy, there's often a feeling of possession and loss. You're jealous because you feel like you might lose something that's yours. Well, envy is almost like a feeling of, I would like to have that. So a good example of this would be like envious, like I really like that my friend has this amazing job. I would love to have one like that too. I love her
Yeah.
Prada purse. I love the
Yeah.
relationship that my friend has. I'm envious of the relationship my friend has with her husband.
Yeah.
Versus jealousy. When it comes to jealousy, sometimes you're competing. You feel like you're competing for possibly attention. There could be a sense of like low self-esteem in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's that fine line of admiring something in someone, crossing the line over into now you basically are coveting what they have and what they want. Jealousy, the word is what it's really rooted in is um fear and control. That's where the basis of of jealousy comes from. And I venture to say that you and I could not sit here and come up with one instance where we know that jealousy that played out in a relationship or marriage ended successfully or well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And sorry, just to interrupt there. Research would say that some jealousy is normal, and yes, and we'll talk about that in a second. How much jealousy is normal versus not? We'll talk about that in a second. But when it comes to jealousy, what are some of the major triggers that we see in relationships?
for sure. Jealousy comes from this fearful place of um, is somebody better than me? Are they smarter than me? Are they prettier? Are they stronger? It's rooted in these these small things, and it starts from childhood. It starts very young, as toddlers. I remember watching our girls play, and it's like, um, it's somebody's playing with a toy they want, and they want that toy, so I'm going to go and take that toy from them. It starts it starts at such a young age, and it's something that's in us. It's how we manage it, and jealousy at its root is something that's controlling us. And jealousy is about us. It's never about the other person. And that's
Oh,
that we have
absolutely.
to remember. Um, Nobody can make you jealous. Nobody, you can, a situation can happen, but just like we tell a couple, nobody can make you mad, just like nobody can make you jealous. You maybe reacted in a jealous fashion because of something deeper in you that hasn't been resolved.
Excellent. It's so true. I agree. Like when it comes to jealousy, there's usually three major categories you can put your jealousy into. First one is comparison, like you just said, possibly comparing yourself to others. Within that, there comes competition, like feeling like you have to. It can even be competition with like your spouse's like mom. Like you hear your spouse talks on the phone with their mom every other night or something, and you want that attention too. So there can be a form of jealousy. It doesn't just have to be like a possible like infidelity kind of situation,
Oh,
or it could be protection. You just want to, you feel like you might lose your husband or something to someone else. So I usually find it falls into comparison, competition, or protection.
Which goes back to what I just said about, jealousy is rooted in you, in that you are not secure in who you are. Because you and I both know, Beth, I've walked with people, I've coached people that have gone through maybe a separation or divorce because of like a betrayal. They didn't leave feeling jealous because that person wanted somebody else. Who they were in their self-worth was still intact. So, you have to separate what was done to you from who you are, and what you believe inherently about yourself. Because a lot of people would think, well, I wasn't good enough for him, or he wanted something better, he wanted something skinnier, or whatever. We go down the list in our head of all the reasons, and that's rooted in a disbelief in something that we don't believe about ourselves. We bought into the lie that that something can come along and someone or something can be taken from us, and I'll never measure up, or I'll never be good enough. And it's a dangerous place to live, because you and I both know you can't have a thriving marriage and it coexists along jealousy. It won't work.
Mm-hmm.
They're incompatible. They don't work together.
Absolutely not. So toxic, right? So
Yeah.
a couple things here. Anyone that's just joining, feel free to hop in the chat, hop in the comments area, and ask us any questions. We'd gladly help you through anything that you're going through right now, or clarify anything that we're talking about.
Yes.
When it comes to jealousy, like we just said right there, like there isn't space for jealousy in a marriage. And so, like I said, research says some jealousy is normal. So yes, but I would check, is it jealousy or envy? I think envy is more normal. If it's jealousy, like you feel like you're going to lose someone, I always say if there's any jealousy, even a speck of it, that's this great indication, like you just said, that there's something deeper. And so the way you acknowledge this is, first, you feel jealous. You acknowledge the actual emotion. You figure out what the trigger is that's associated with it. What just happened? What situation just happened? What words just happened? And then we can deep dive and figure out what that root is. And often, like you said, whether it comes from inner child, like childhood, or whether it's even just past relationships. Like if you were possibly cheated on or had trust issues even with past relationships, even boyfriends in high school, sometimes that comes back and still wreaks havoc. Those patterns come back, and those looping thoughts, obsessive thoughts come back in your current relationship. And you still, even though you know, like, I'm so over my boyfriend from high school, yes, he may have cheated on me, but I'm over it. But sometimes those things that happen still can show up in your marriage if you haven't dealt with them.
And like you just said, you think that you're over it, but you're not, because you carried it into your next relationship, or even into your marriage. You carry things in that you don't even realize you've carried in. I mean, we see that all the time. And I'll sit with a couple or be coaching someone, and they get a revelation. It's like, well, you thought that was in the past, or something that just happened in high school, but you actually carried it in and you didn't even realize it. So, self-realization is great, because that's a stepping stone towards that healing of jealousy, and kind of ridding your marriage of that, and how to live in a healthy relationship. And we can talk about that later. Just what are some things that healthy, transparent relationships look like, and how do you respectfully share things with one another without feeling like a detective, or that you're policing your spouse? Because it's exhausting to be a detective all the time. Like, you have to choose whether you're going to be a wife or a detective. Like, you can't be both.
Okay, that's like the quote of the day. You have to choose whether you're going to be a detective or a wife. I love that. Okay, there's a question in the chat here. So
Yeah.
Could there be jealousy towards a family member? So yeah, we're talking infidelity here when we're talking about being a detective, but no, of course, there could be jealousy towards people that there aren't romantic relationships with. So meaning, could there be a spouse that's jealous of a relationship you have with your family, like a mom, a sister, like a really close relationship where maybe they show more affection towards each other. They seem more supportive of each other. They give each other compliments more. And that's what you want. You're like, I want to be on the receiving end of that. I want that love, support, connection. And like those words of affirmation, 100% that jealousy could happen. And I'm curious though, if it's jealousy or if it's envy. If it's envy, it's because you would like it too. If it's jealousy, you mean you're scared that you're never going to get it back, that
Yeah.
they're stealing that connection, that time. It could just be
Yeah.
time. Like you're worried that they're taking away time that you could be having with your spouse. So
Well,
let us know in the
yeah,
chat if that helps or if you want us to further explain. But yeah, Shannon, would you like to add to that?
I would love to. I also think that when you come into a marriage relationship, you know, you're marrying into a family where the time has gone by and there's history that exists. There's history that exists with you, Beth, and your family before you got married, and the same with me. It's like there was time that existed, and sometimes we can get jealous about why don't we have that kind of relationship. And I think that it's something that can't be microwaved, that it's a slow cooker. Like your relationship will evolve into that type of depth, but it has to take time. And realizing that you're not trying to replace maybe a husband's relationship with his mom, maybe he's really close with a brother or sister. Like you're not looking to replace them, because if you really sit back and think about it, you love that about your spouse. You love that they have that deep connection with family. Family is so important. It's part of our culture. It's part of how we get through life, and good times and bad times. So you're looking for the deep, meaningful part of it, but in a way that is appropriate and fits into the marriage relationship. So, but you know, I remember early on in our marriage, I remember my husband said something to us, said something to me, and I was probably hanging pictures or something, and I said, you know what? I'm going to call my dad. I'm going to call my dad and have him come over here, because he will get these pictures up on the wall super fast. Because in my eyes, my dad can do anything. And he said, how come you don't ask me to hang that stuff up? And I'm like, well, I just I just know my dad can. I just know that he'll drive over here right now and he'll do it for me. And it took him a while to be okay with that. And I told him the way that I see my dad as that hero in my life, I said the same way the girls see you as the hero in their life. And I think he had a paradigm shift of, ah, like I'm going to be that, what Shannon's dad is to her, I'm that to my girls now. And, you know, we have to grow and evolve through relationships. But it was a very funny moment because he was like, well, I can hang pictures, you know, it's kind of that like, I can do this too kind of jealousy thing. And of course we work through it, but it happens. It happens more often than not in family situations.
Yeah. So you know what? We could add another level to this. We can start kind of heading into the strategies we use to overcome jealousy now. And with that said, in a situation like that, you could say to your husband, I understand that you feel that way. How can I help you? Like, what is it that I can do to help you in this situation so that he maybe doesn't have those same feelings anymore? Because,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to ask your dad, but is there something that he needs fulfilled? What
Yeah.
are his needs in that situation?
And the shift that happened was that I always go to Javier first when I want something done. And as life went on, he would say, you know what? Go ahead, ask your dad. He's like, I don't really have time, or maybe I don't want to do it. It's so funny. But he's like, oh yeah, call your dad. But I'd be like, if you want to take on this little project, he's like, no, it's totally fine. Because he became secure in our relationship and the dynamics of us, that he didn't feel threatened by that anymore.
Interesting, isn't it? A lot of times, yeah, like we just said, jealousy comes from a place of lack, low self worth. And that's what your husband had in that moment, too, right? He felt almost like he might lose part of you and part of like needing him. He thought he was going to lose that. So that's why he felt jealous, possibly, of your dad. So yeah, it always comes from a low vibe, low self worth, like inadequate state, these jealous feelings. But you're not stuck there forever. We have some solutions that we can help you with right now. Do you
Yes.
want to lead this? What's one of your favorite ones for
Sure.
working on jealousy?
I wrote down a couple, you know, ways to combat jealousy. The first thing that we have to do is we have to acknowledge that jealousy kills. There is no positives to the word jealousy. It will kill anything. It will kill friendships. It will kill relationships. It can be a component of a marriage dissolving. So jealousy in of itself, acknowledging that it's not a positive, that it will eventually kill things at the root. Um, like I
You
said
know,
earlier, you can't have a thriving marriage and jealousy coexist together. Like it's just not going to work. Like recognizing that.
just to add to that, Shannon, I'm so glad we're both on board with this. Like, based on, like I just said, research says a little bit of jealousy is normal. It's not. It does not help. It's a low vibe emotion that we don't want to have in our marriage, in our friendships, in our workspace, because there's, like we just said, there's meaning there. So I'm so glad you and I are on board with that. So if you're feeling jealous out there, we need to put an end to it. So what were you going to say there? You had a next point.
But we're here to hold your hand and know that we've all been there. Like remembering, like, there isn't one person walking the planet that hasn't ever felt a little bit jealous of something or someone at some time. Like, it's just part of human nature, but it's how do we deal with it? How do we control it? And how do we are the ruler of it. Like, it shouldn't rule us. Like I said earlier, we have to decide to be a wife, not a detective. And that what you just said, Beth, right on the head, is that jealousy is a lack of self-confidence. So if you're feeling jealous and you've discovered, like, I really don't have anything to be jealous of pertaining to your marriage, then you need to do a deep dive into, why am I feeling this way? What is causing this? Is there some things in my past? Is it my family of origin? Am I feeding my negative thoughts of everything that I think that could go wrong? Like, am I thinking of everything that could possibly happen? You know, who is he talking to at work? Who is she talking to at work? What are they doing? Who are they on their phone with? You know, we literally play into the whole soundtrack of negative thoughts. And I think that our minds are kind of like wired to go negative before they go positive, right?
And they really are, based on like our caveman, like fight or flight or freeze response.
Yeah.
We are always on the lookout for what could go wrong. In today's society, we don't need that. We don't need that spidey sense anymore, because usually our fight is when it's just anxiety. It's not, like we said, the typical tiger or bear. It's just us, and it's our own thoughts that are causing us to go into fight or flight. So yeah, it's so important that you're in touch with those triggers, those emotions that are coming up, because yes, you and I probably still sometimes feel jealous, right? Like, of little things here and there, but we nip it in the butt right away, because we're aware of it. And that's where you get to be a detective of your own life, not a detective of your partner. Like you just said, you get to be a detective or a wife, and you can be a detective for yourself, but not on your partner.
Yeah.
What are some strategies now? Like, if someone's like fresh out of a situation of infidelity, where, you know what, the threat was real, like it was just there, and they're still on high alert. What are some strategies for kind of working through like that immediate bits of jealousy that are coming through?
First and foremost, forgiveness has to be at the top of the list, because without forgiveness, we can't move forward. And forgiveness does not mean that we condone behavior. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you can walk all over me. Forgiveness is about you. It's a personal thing where you've decided, I'm going to forgive that person, because without forgiveness, it opens the door for other things to creep in, like contempt and resentment, which are those are major things we definitely want to stay away from. So we have to offer forgiveness, and remember that this does not mean that we are condoning or enabling infidelity, bad behavior, bad choices, but we have to choose to walk in forgiveness. And I believe, for Javi and I, that we have to trust God more than we trust ourselves and our spouse. Like, you have to be able to take this to God and trust God with this. Practicing gratitude. Like, we don't practice gratitude enough in our life. And Javi and I post this a lot on our social media about just like pausing, texting your spouse, and just saying something you're grateful or thankful for them. Like, it's like, can you get this at the store? Can you pick up so-and-so from soccer? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's like, how about we get back to that place of just being grateful and the gratitude that should exist foundationally in our marriage, but we let it go by the wayside so easily.
I guess, just to interrupt, what we're saying here is it really starts with you. Like, yes, if your partner cheated on you, that is not okay. We're not saying that behavior is okay or that should have happened. But you know what? You can start the healing, and it starts with you. And it starts with getting to a place of where you can forgive them. Yes, it's not right that they did that. but you start to have to open up your heart. Otherwise, your heart's going to get hard and it's going to start to close off, and you're never going to be able to accept love from your partner again. And I'm not saying it needs to open wide right away where you're like, it's okay, honey. It's all right what you did. It's a slow process. Like you just said, it's not a microwave. It's a slow cooker. But it starts with you and dealing with those feelings that you're feeling of jealousy and figuring out what is it that you need in that situation. Was it like, I just wanted someone to love me, or I want to feel like I'm good enough for him. Like, why is he looking elsewhere? And that's when you really got to work on yourself. You got to build that self-love up, because when there's been infidelity, it rocks you at the core. You start to question everything. Like, am I not pretty enough? Am I not smart enough? Am I not good enough? Does he not like me anymore? You start to question it, which shatters you. So we have to build that foundation of you back up so that you can get to a place where you're strong and then can love your partner too. But you got to love yourself first after there's been a situation like that. And then that's when forgiveness comes and gratitude comes. Like, I'm thankful for my marriage and I'm thankful for this in my marriage. Sometimes you can even, it takes a while to get to this point, but you know what? I can be thankful for the infidelity. You know why? Because it's shown me that this is a relationship I really want to fight for, and it's made us stronger in the end. So even really bad situations, we can sometimes find gratitude in them. Otherwise, we're just going to hold a negative perspective of that in our minds forever. We want to change that view of whatever's happened in our lives, even if it's, we can go to that stuff in a moment. But what did you want to say?
You know, what you said, true transformation is when we realize that it's not about us. So if something was done to you, if there was betrayal, infidelity, if something was done to you, it doesn't have anything to do with you. It has to do with the other person. That's where we can become so egocentric and focus in on, I wasn't tall, thin, fat, skinny, long hair, blonde hair, gray hair, black hair. Like, you could go through the list. That, what they did is about the other person. And we have to be confident in who we are and settled in. That really sucks that my spouse chose to do that. It's put cracks in our foundation, and it's really hurt our marriage relationship, and we're going to have to repair from here. But if we make it all about what did I do wrong, what can I do better, well, we're infallible people. So so say a person, Beth, loses 50 pounds, dyes her hair blonde, and looks like a Barbie doll all day long. Well, then what do you do with that when he doesn't want that anymore? So we're always trying to do something to make somebody else happy, and marriage is not about your happiness. So ultimately, we have to be confident in who we are and grow from a place right there, not about what do I need to change in order for them not to do that again. What a terrible cycle to live in. And that, I know women that do that, and that's got to be
It's
exhausting.
exhausting. Yeah, we just said the same time. It's exhausting. Like, who wants to live that way? It's just obsessive thoughts. It's so bad. And you know what? If you're there, you can get off that hamster wheel 100%. I skipped over a question a while ago, so hopefully this person's still in our live. What causes emotional detachment? So I feel like my spouse is a different person when he speaks to someone else. Yes, this can happen, and that can cause some jealousy too, because that's how I want to be spoken to. Why are you so nice and funny with those people, but then when you're with me, you're grouchy, you're negative, you're just not fun to be around? I want that version, the version of you over there. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, the thing is that most of the time that husbands and wives think those things, they don't express them in the right way. So a wife or a husband, they might just stew in that. They will sit and stew in it until it explodes. But how about having a conversation with your spouse and saying, hey, I just want to share something with you. I noticed that when you're on the phone with your colleagues, you sound a little different. You sound a little more jovial. You sound a little more happy. And sometimes when we're talking, it just feels a little different. And expressing how you feel and giving that person a chance to express what they're thinking and be like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I do act that way. Um,
What if you don't get that response? What if you get the, what are you talking about? I'm nice to
what
you.
you're
What if you get one of those responses? They don't actually even see it. What do we do then?
Yeah. Well, that's where you have to choose to do the right thing when the wrong thing's being done to you. And that's hard. That's a big pill to swallow because you want to repay evil for evil, even if it's just like, you're going to talk that way to me, I'm going to talk this way to you. And
Game on, right? Game
yeah,
on.
and that of in itself is not going to lead you to the thriving marriage that you so desperately want. So doing the right thing when the wrong thing's being done to you, it's like, okay, I really desire for my spouse to engage with me and talk to me the way that he talks to other people outside of our house. So I'm going to do that for them. I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to be the bigger person here. And and I know what your next question is. We're probably thinking the same thing, Beth. Well, how long do I do that, Shannan? How long should
You're
I
a
do
mind
that?
reader.
Oh,
You're a mind
oh,
reader.
well, try it for 4 or 5 weeks. If it doesn't work, then screw it. Go straight to combating each other and tearing him down with your word. It's like, oh, there's no magic number because going back to our story, I was belligerent. I was verbally abusive to Javi the first 5 years of our marriage. And he had every reason after year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He could have said, I've tried, I've done my best, I've taken the high road, and I think it's time for me and Shannan to part ways, but he didn't. So when somebody says, how long? You're not going to get the answer you want from me.
No, and like back to this whole process, it starts with you. And when you can, I find with the women I work with, when you start to interact with your partner, even though they're not acting exactly the way you want, the tone's a little off, the facial expressions are off, you know what, you still take that high road, like you just said, you act from your authentic you. Like, who are you? And does it feel good to speak to someone that way? And if it doesn't, that's probably not you. And so when you can start to unleash that version of yourself that feels loving, feels kind, feels happy, when you can unleash that version of you, eventually your partner will soften. I sometimes use the word soften, especially if it's a husband. They seem to like open up their heart a little bit more. They feel safer in the house in regards to maybe talking about their feelings. They don't feel judged. They don't feel nagged. And eventually, like you said, we don't know the exact time, but they'll come around. As
Yeah.
you kind of up level your vibe, they will eventually come to you. They're a little bit behind, but they'll come to you eventually. And
Yeah.
that's where the magic really happens. And then you're like, I've done the hard work. I really worked on myself. My
Yeah.
partner's now meeting me there, meeting me where I'm at.
And to add to that, Javier wrote a post maybe 2 weeks ago, and he says successful couples do consistently what other couples do occasionally. And I'm going to tell you, if you guys implement good, effective communication and all these things that Beth and I are telling you, and you only do it for 3 or 4 weeks, or we tried, we do it once, and then a month went by, and we tried to sit and have another, conversation. It's like, no, it has to be consistent. It's the same thing with working out. You can't go to the gym one day a week and expect to be in a weightlifting competition or a body build. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the same thing in your marriage. You have to be consistent with the tools that you get from Beth and from 24/7 and all the other platforms. Like, you guys are getting good information. I see it every day in my feed. Like, there is good stuff out there. You have to implement it.
Absolutely. Okay, Shannan, this is the fastest half an hour I think we've ever chatted for. So I swear it was like 5 minutes. What, any like last kind of points that you want to give, or maybe that was just it, but do you have
Yeah.
anything else you kind of want to leave everyone with? And then maybe we'll talk about how people can reach you.
Yeah. Um, my last bit of information would be if I was speaking to both parties, both the husband and wife. And here's what we've learned in 29 years. Transparency has to exist in your marriage in order for it to thrive. It is a sign of respect for one another. It is not this detective, policewoman, policeman situation. You should be able to have full access to passwords, emails, phones, anything, because there is nothing that you're hiding, locations, all of that. These things are a sign of respect for your spouse that you are in a covenant marriage with. You're saying, I respect you, that there are no secrets, I'm not hiding anything, and you have full access to see where I'm at and what I'm doing. Um, you need to talk often about how you're feeling. I know so many couples that um, there's just a lack of communication, Beth. It sounds really like silly and like super basic, but we know so many couples who are like they're doing life together, they're parenting, they've got jobs, like they're talking, but they're not communicating. And they haven't sat down to have a real conversation. And there's so many things that both of them are kind of frustrated about. And it's like you know that you can sit down on the couch. You might not resolve it in 1.5 hours. It's okay. It can be an ongoing conversation, but you understand that you guys could sit down and start talking about these things and you could actually make headway. It just boggles my mind. It's like, go and talk to your spouse. Like, do it.
Sometimes there's fear there because in the past, there's sometimes been miscommunication and there's been arguments and fights, and they feel like they're walking on eggshells sometimes, and it's like, I don't know if I want to have that conversation. But here's my suggestion: bring who you are, that true you, into that conversation. Sometimes we just got to hear what they have to say, and even if it takes them 5 minutes of just what I used to say to my husband, you're going on and on and on. He needs to. That's how he gets out what he needs to say. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't love his communication style. Like I said, don't love his facial expressions. It's all good. But some people don't like the tone that their husband speaks in. Let
Yeah.
it just come out, because they're not attacking you. They're not, it's not an attack on you. And so we have to get to a place where we don't take it personal. Sometimes those communications, like
Oh,
those chats
sure.
on the couch, and we
Yeah.
could just hear them out. That's where this really starts too,
Yeah.
instead of
And
interrupting or trying to defend yourself.
Javi and I've been doing this for 29 years, and by no means would we ever stand before a group of people or teach or coach a couple and say that we have communication figured out. There are times, probably within the last couple of days, where we can have a conversation, and I'm like, "Wow, we are, hello, you're not me," and he's like, "You're not." Shannon, that's what I just said to you. I'm like, no, that's not what you just said. Like, we're still missing each other. The thing is that we don't let that escalate or turn or let it detonate. Like a lot of relationships will let that detonate, and then they take that, and now we haven't talked to our spouse for 3 days, or he's sleeping on the couch. It's like, well, you didn't need to let that detonate. You didn't need to let that escalate to anything. I'll just look at Hobby and I'll be like, okay, uh, we're gonna have to agree to disagree, and then maybe we'll revisit it in a couple hours or the next day, and I'll be like, oh, I am, yeah, I get what you're saying. It came out wrong. Like, we've learned to revisit things, but know that we don't always get it right. Like, we're human.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. Like, even marriage coaches,
Yeah.
we we have our moments too. For me, it's exhaustion. If I'm tired, I lose my defensive. I get more defensive, and I'm not able to listen as well when
Yeah.
I'm tired. A great question just came up. How can you ask for transparency without sounding like a detective? For me, I think there needs to be a step before asking for transparency. What is it that you're feeling? In taking that feeling, what is triggering you? So what is your husband or wife saying in that moment, or what situations are coming up that you feel like there needs to now be transparency? I think we have to take a step back, and those discussions have to happen around what's actually going on, and then maybe a solution would be to ask for transparency. Shannan, what are your thoughts on that one?
I think what you said is great. I would probably not use the word transparency, even though that's like what your end goal might be. Um, I would say this is why I love premarital and I love getting in front of a lot of problems with young couples who are just getting married. It's like these are things that should exist before going into marriage, because now you're kind of backpedaling, but it doesn't mean that you can't get there. But it's just it's coming to a place of, it comes down to respect. Like, it comes down to mutual respect. And me giving Javier access to every device that I have, everywhere that I go, who I'm with, what we're doing, is out of respect for our marriage. It's not out of this that he's policing me, I'm policing him. We do it because we want that transparency to exist, so that there is no room for accusations, and it keeps us accountable. And it is like it is guardrails in our marriage, and we're big on your guardrails and your boundaries in your marriage. So I think what you said is good, is backing up and having that conversation before transparency, and just talking about like what it is mutually you want your marriage foundation to be. What is it? Um,
Yeah,
what
I
do you
agree
guys
with that.
what do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say they if they are like, "Oh, we know the Smiths." Yes, this is the kind of people they are. Like they just know. Like they could be able to describe you because they see the fruit in your marriage. So it comes back down to like you got to sit and instead of just being like, "You need to be more transparent with me." Like that's not going to go well and nobody's going to receive that. So stepping back and asking those questions I think is brilliant.
Yeah, and I would even, you could do this angle as an idea instead of saying, I think we should just give each other's passwords. And you feel like that's going to not go so well, then take a step back and just ask, why do you think we lock all our devices and don't share our passwords? 1 second. I'm busy, honey. Um, I'm just on the phone, hun. So sorry. Taking that step back and just maybe, why do we lock our devices? Why do we not share our passwords? You know what? If there were a situation, and this is legit, if something happened and I needed to get into that stuff, wouldn't it be nice to have them recorded? And so it's not coming from a place of suspicion. It's just coming from a place of like safety and openness within your
Oh,
marriage.
yeah.
We have each other's stuff, but it's never from suspicion. It's just more from a place of you can get them if you need to, like if you were in the
Yeah.
hospital or something happened.
And I'll tell you this, I have every password saved on my phone for every device that we have, Javier's phone, but I've never unlocked or looked at anything. Oh gosh, since devices, well, they didn't exist when we first got married, so I don't know, the last 20 years. So I have no reason to. But our phone, like if he picked up my phone and wanted to look at it, or I want to see if you have a picture to send to myself. I had nothing to hide. Go ahead. Like that's the respect and transparency that I think a lot of couples want to get to. And what we're saying is that you can get there, but there's some steps in order to get there, which I think you laid out perfectly.
I agree. Shannon,
Yeah.
this has been wonderful. Any last suggestions or how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Please follow us at 247 Marriage, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're on all platforms. Um, Also, make sure that you hit the bio link under our name. That will give you the latest update of where any boot camps, marriage labs are happening. You can basically keep up to date with where the marriage lab is. We're in Arizona right now, and we'll be headed back through Southern and Northern California for more boot camps. And please drop us a DM and say hi. If you were just joined us, start following us. Tell us that you were from Soulful Wellness. We'd love to say hi and get to know you. And as always, it was a pleasure to be on here, and it goes by so fast.
No kidding. Oh, it's been so wonderful. And anyone that's listening from your platforms, I'm Beth from at Soulify Wellness. Click my bio. I have this great guide called 3 Ways to Save Your Marriage. You can download that or just DM me ready if you're ready to make that change within your marriage. Shannon, this has been so good. We'll have to do this again.
Yes. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye, everyone.
Okay.